Why talk about foolishness? Because it's a disease that destroys empires from kingdoms to careers, from friendships to nations. The Roman Empire didn't collapse overnight, it rotted from within. And just like them, most people's failures aren't the result of some overwhelming enemy. They are the result of blind spots they refuse to see. Machiavelli warned that those in positions of influence, whether rulers or ordinary men, fall not because they lack opportunities, but because they lack the discipline to recognize their own weaknesses. Fools repeat mistakes because they prefer comfort over correction. Fools ignore warnings because they confuse opinion with insult. And worst of all, fools believe that being told the truth is an attack. But the wise? They know that the sting of truth is better than the sweetness of lies. So today, we're breaking down 5 signs of a foolish person straight from the principles Machiavelli would have nodded at, and modern psychology would confirm. If you spot these in others, protect yourself. If you spot them in yourself, fix them before they ruin you. Comment this now. I don't chase respect, I command it. If this is hitting you already, pause for 1 second, like the video, subscribe, and lock in, because what I'm about to say next will make you see people and maybe even yourself in a way you can't unsee. The refusal to adapt is the first and clearest sign of a fool. Machiavelli said, "A prince who adapts his policy to the times will succeed, and likewise, one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times will not." Most people hear this and think it's about politics, but it's about survival in every area of life. A fool believes the world should bend to him. He clings to the same habits, the same opinions, the same strategies long after the world has moved on. He mistakes stubbornness for strength, but in reality, he's brittle. And brittle things break under pressure. The wise understand that change is not betrayal, it's evolution. They adjust their approach without losing their principles. A general who keeps fighting the last war will lose the current one. A businessman who keeps selling yesterday's product will be replaced by someone who understands tomorrow's needs. A person in a relationship who refuses to grow will wake up one day and wonder why the other person is gone. The refusal to adapt is rooted in ego. The fool's identity is so tied to the way he's always done things that to change feels like admitting he was wrong. So he digs his heels in, defends his old ways, and quietly sabotages his own future. The truth? Adapting is not weakness. Adapting is intelligence. It means you're reading the room, reading the market, reading yourself. It means you're playing the long game instead of clinging to short-term comfort. You can see the difference instantly. The fool says, "This is just who I am." The wise say, "This is who I am right now, and I'm willing to change to become who I need to be." Comment this now. I adapt before I'm forced to. If you think that's sharp, wait for what's next, because the second sign of a fool is the one that makes them dangerous to be around. It's the reason they turn victories into defeats without even realizing it. And it's the one most people don't see coming until it's too late. The second sign of a fool is their inability to control their tongue. Machiavelli understood that words are weapons, and the fool swings them carelessly, cutting himself more often than his enemies. A fool talks too much, too soon, and to the wrong people. He reveals his plans before they are ready. He insults without strategy. He leaks information not out of malice, but out of the irresistible urge to be heard. And in doing so, he arms his rivals with exactly what they need to destroy him. In The Prince, Machiavelli warned that a ruler must learn when to speak and when to stay silent, because power often lies in what you don't reveal. Silence builds intrigue. Silence creates leverage. But a fool hates silence because it forces him to sit with his own thoughts, and that's the one opponent he's never beaten. Psychology backs this up. Those who cannot regulate their speech often lack impulse control, a hallmark of poor judgment. They confuse openness with honesty, and honesty with oversharing. In their mind, telling everyone everything proves they have nothing to hide. In reality, it proves they have no discipline. This is why you'll often see a fool destroy his own reputation with his own mouth. He'll brag until people hope for his downfall. He'll gossip until no one trusts him. He'll argue until he looks insecure. And he'll defend his mistakes so loudly that he never learns from them. The wise know that every word has a cost. Sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing and let people wonder what you're thinking. Machiavelli would tell you, control your words, and you control the battlefield. Comment this now. I speak with purpose, or I stay silent. And if that one stung, good, because sign 3 is going to sting even more. It's the one that exposes a fool's true weakness, the one flaw they try to hide under bravado, possessions, and noise. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. The third sign of a fool is the constant need for validation. Machiavelli understood that true power is self-contained. A ruler who depends on applause to feel secure is already enslaved to the crowd. The fool cannot function without external approval. He measures his worth by likes, by compliments, by whether others are nodding along. He needs witnesses to his every action, because in his mind, if no one saw it, it didn't count. This makes him predictable, and predictability is fatal in the game of power. Psychologically, this is rooted in insecurity. The fool's self-image is fragile, so he hands the authority over it to everyone around him. A single insult can ruin his day. A lack of recognition makes him question his value. This means anyone who learns his need for validation can control him with ease. Praise him, and he's loyal. Ignore him, and he crumbles. Criticize him, and he lashes out. Machiavelli would see such a person as unfit to lead, because the crowd's favor is fickle. One day they cheer you, the next day they burn you at the stake sometimes for the same action they once applauded. The wise man understands this, and does not live for approval. He builds himself on principles, not popularity. The tragedy is that the fool believes he's chasing admiration, when in reality, he's chasing permission to exist. That's why his victories feel hollow. He didn't win for himself, he won for the audience. And when the audience changes the channel, he's left with nothing. The cure is brutal, but simple. Learn to validate yourself. Build so much internal certainty that applause becomes decoration, not fuel. The only validation you need is the quiet knowledge that you did what was necessary. Comment this now. I am my own approval. If this is striking a nerve, good. Because sign 4 is where we turn the knife. It's the one that explains why fools never rise above mediocrity, no matter how much talent or opportunity they start with. And it's not what most people think. The fourth sign of a fool is their inability to learn from history, both their own and the history of others. Machiavelli warned that a man who wishes to foresee the future must consult the past. Yet the fool lives as if every problem is brand new, as if no one before him has faced the same battles. The fool repeats the same mistakes, not because life is unfair, but because he refuses to face the truth about his failures. He tells himself the outcome was bad luck, that circumstances were against him, that other people sabotaged him. Never once does he turn the blade inward and ask, what did I do to cause this? This blindness isn't always about stupidity, sometimes it's willful. To acknowledge the lessons of history requires humility, and humility is poison to the fool's ego. He would rather blame fate than admit he was wrong. He would rather start over from zero than build on the hard-earned lessons of defeat. That's why his life feels like a carousel. Different scenery, same cycle. The wise man treats every error as tuition paid to the school of experience. He reads history, not for entertainment, but for survival. He knows that human nature doesn't change, only the setting does. The same flaws that brought down kings will bring down CEOs. The same arrogance that collapsed empires will ruin personal relationships. And if you see the pattern early, you can avoid stepping into the same trap. Machiavelli himself studied Rome, Greece, and the kingdoms of his own time to craft his political strategies. He understood that most men fail because they think they're unique, when in reality, they're just another chapter in a very old book. The fool never reads that book, and if he does, he closes it at the first uncomfortable truth. That's why he's doomed to live the same mistakes until he has nothing left to lose. Comment this now. I remember, so I rise. We've covered 4 signs so far, but the 5th one is the most devastating. It's the one that turns a fool from a harmless clown into a walking disaster. It's not just a weakness, it's a magnet for ruin. And Machiavelli would say it's the final nail in the coffin. The 5th sign of a fool is their inability to control alliances, who they trust, who they follow, and who they allow into their inner circle. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must know how to choose his advisors wisely, because the first impression that is formed of a ruler's intelligence is based on the quality of the men he keeps around him. The fool ignores this entirely. A fool surrounds himself with anyone who flatters him, anyone who makes him feel important, anyone who echoes his own beliefs. He mistakes loyalty for competence, friendship for wisdom, and charisma for character. He never stops to ask, does this person strengthen my position or weaken it? This is why fools are so easily manipulated. A cunning man doesn't need to attack them directly, he just needs to whisper through their friends. He just needs to place the right people in their ear, feeding them half-truths until the fool acts against his own interests. In modern life, this plays out everywhere. The fool takes advice from broke people about money, from bitter people about relationships, from unaccomplished people about ambition. And then he wonders why his life is full of problems he could have avoided. The wise know that every person you let close is either a shield or a dagger. Machiavelli would tell you that a leader who fails to guard his circle has already signed his own death warrant. Power leaks through weak alliances. Trusting the wrong people is a luxury no one can afford, not in politics, not in business, not in life. The fool doesn't just let the wrong people in, he lets the right people leave. He drives away the competent because they challenge him, preferring the comfort of yes-men. And in that comfort, his downfall begins. Comment this now. My circle is my fortress. So now you see it 5 signs of a fool. The refusal to adapt, the uncontrolled tongue, the thirst for validation, the ignorance of history, the reckless alliances. If you see these in others, keep your distance. If you see them in yourself, fix them immediately. Because here's the hard truth, Machiavelli would never sugarcoat. Most people don't lose because the world is unfair. They lose because they acted like fools and called it fate. If this woke something up in you, like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned because in the next one, I'm going to break down the 5 traits of a dangerously wise person, the kind who plays the long game and wins, and you're going to want to be that person.